Hey, good day, everyone. Joining me today is Jane Riley, Chief Compliance Officer from the Leaders Group. Jane's very recognizable. She's been with the Leaders Group since 1998. If you're not familiar with the Leaders Group, they themselves were founded in 1994. So Jane's pretty much been there the entire time. There's 2 decades of knowledge, expertise, leadership, especially in this changing marketplace that we reside in. The Leaders Group is the premier broker dealer for BGAs nationwide and is the world's #1 dealer for variable universal life. I'm saying that from the NAILBA CEO role. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Dan. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, we love you guys. Leaders Group is a big supporter of NAILBA. You're a big supporter of all the brokerage general agencies out there. So I'm sure you're very recognizable. Well, that being said, let's dive right in, as you are the Chief Compliance Officer. So I know you can go super deep on all these questions, but I'm going to force you to stay at the surface level, or at very much the surface level of a BGA principal. How's that?
That sounds great. Otherwise, I can get kind of compliance geeky.
All right, let's dive right into it. As an insurance-focused broker-dealer, let's just talk about compliance. How do you approach it with requirements for wholesale BGAs and retail agents registered with the Leaders Group? What is the holistic approach?
Well, at the Leaders Group, our whole philosophy is doing the right thing is always the right thing. So that means we're out there to protect the customers, our representatives, the BGAs, and of course, the Leaders Group.
Sure.
So that's how we look at everything, is as long as we are protecting the customers, we're protecting our representatives, and we're protecting the firm. On the wholesale side of the business, we're not dealing with customers as such. Our customers are the other financial advisors. So we're there to protect those financial advisors, making sure that even if they're not with the Leaders Group, they're still doing things right, that our BGAs are protected because they're doing things the right way, and of course that the Leaders Group is. So we're really here to facilitate compliant business. We try to get away from that whole, idea that compliance is here to just stop you from doing business. So it's a holistic, do the right thing, and everybody stays out of trouble.
That's true, but now compliance can get pretty tricky, right? And your knowledge goes pretty deep. Been there a long time, worked with hundreds of BGAs, maybe thousands. So all that being said, fast forward to 2022, what is the #1 compliance challenge for BGAs?
Completely out of the wheelhouse, what most people think is compliance. But to me, the #1 compliance challenge is cybersecurity. We have, in the insurance industry, we have so much data on everybody that is either protected by HIPAA, that is protected by the other non-public personal information laws. And anymore, we all store that out there electronically somehow. So making sure that we have our cybersecurity systems in place is the biggest challenge that every agency has to be aware of, that nobody can breach their systems, because the cost of mitigating any kind of a cybersecurity breach can wipe out somebody. So
I have to imagine the horror stories that you could tell would keep the principals and the leadership teams at various agencies up all night.
Right, and I don't like to do that. I like to just give them enough warning that they lose a couple of hours of sleep instead of the whole night.
All right. Well, that being said, though, right, since we already have them up losing sleep, let's shift to the regulatory challenges that are on the horizon, and how you will anticipate, them impacting the insurance distribution marketplace. I mean, we have them up, so let's keep them up.
Yeah, and that's really what keeps me up at night as well. And where it really impacts the insurance distribution side is insurance products are getting more complex every day. There are more options you can choose. There are, starting to be caps, buffers, everything else out there that makes them more complex, which makes them maybe a little harder to understand for customers, which then leads to complaints with regulators, which puts us right in the focus where we'd rather not be. So just making sure that we are understanding what we're doing, making sure we have all the documentation covered. That's what, regulators seem to feel like, put more in writing and somehow that's better. More is better. Not sure I necessarily agree, but it's where we are. We look at regulation best interest. We look at the Department of Labor, PTE 2020-02. All of those things really are about disclosure and documentation. So
Right.
That's the biggest thing we all have to be aware of. And thank goodness we are being able to do most of it electronically, because otherwise people would just get completely disillusioned when they saw the amount of paper that it takes.
So cybersecurity, disclosure, documentation. Let's put a period at the end of that and move into what the BGA principals love, which is selling, right? And of course, you guys are one of the leading distributor broker dealers for VUL. VUL continues to be a very talked about subject, product, and the different ways to approach it. What are you specifically seeing in regards to the type of that type of business over the next several years, specifically around VUL?
Makes me smile because VUL is growing. Again, as we talk about options, there are more options being added to the variable life products out there. We're going to see a lot of, as we have for the last several years, we're going to see new developments coming out from the different carriers over the next 12 to 24 months.
Yeah.
Things that are going to make them more appealing to the BGAs to be selling, more appealing to the customers, and in the best interest of those customers. So it's an exciting time for us. We only see the market growing. The carriers don't have some of the same reserve requirements with the variable products that they do with the fixed products. So they're able to do a little better pricing. It's a win-win for everybody. So
I see what you did there. You scared them, got their attention around cybersecurity compliance and everything that goes along with it. And now you hit the VUL. It's kind of a perfect fit there, Jane. I mean, there's a lot of challenges and opportunities in the marketplace right now, but clearly VUL is one of them. But obviously compliance is up front, to make sure that the VUL promotion can continue. So I'm going to close it out then with, outside of technology challenges, what are more some of the other challenges you see, or the opportunities that the market is seeing right now or facing right now, depending if it's a challenge or an opportunity, as it relates to compliance?
It's not just compliance, it's the business in general, but it comes back to doing it correctly. So it becomes a compliance consideration, is working with RIAs. And that's both a challenge and an opportunity.
Okay.
Because the number of straight financial advisors that are sitting in a wirehouse continues to decrease. Those that are either hybrid or solely an RIA continue to increase. So the opportunities there on how to work within the RIA marketplace, one of the biggest challenges to do it correctly, one of the biggest opportunities when it is done correctly. So that's one of those areas that questions come up every day. How can we work with an RIA? And you have to make sure you do it correctly to keep both the RIA on the straight and narrow, and to keep everybody else on the straight and narrow. But that's one of those opportunities that let's all make sure we push forward through and do it correctly.
Jane, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that your fingerprints are all over the compliance section of the NAILBA Brokerage Reference Manual. So anybody who has these questions and they're NAILBA members, first, they could have their employees go through that reference manual because your documentation is there. But then obviously work with the leaders group around the compliance, especially around VUL and working with IRAs. So kind of a perfect fit, Jane.
It is. And we're here to support the industry, not just those that are registered with us. So we're always available to answer any questions that anybody has, particularly in the VUL marketplace.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate your continued support, but I think it's it shouldn't be overlooked that you guys are the leading broker dealer and you are the Leaders Group. So it's a perfect fit. I want to thank you for your time today, and of course the Leaders Group continued support of independent distribution.
It is our pleasure, and thank you for having me, Dan.
Awesome.